is Dave Paulides, CanAm Missing Project, a copyrighted edition for our video channel. And this is the executive producer, Hawk. And she's in here to make sure that we do things right. And she's got a really tough eye on things, but she's a good girl. She loves her ears rubbed. Oh yeah, it feels good, don't it? Yeah, you're a good girl. Hey, can you shake hands? Oh, Dad's a good girl. Yeah. Oh yeah, Dad's a good girl. Yeah, it's a good girl. Yeah, it's a good girl. So, here we go. CanAm Missing Project, a copyrighted edition for our video channel. And this is a missing persons segment, and that's what this section is all about. So first of all, you guys send me in some very interesting emails every once in a while. And I got one in today from a person, one of the villagers. And this is about people that go missing in Iceland. And this is on a website called Grapevine. Here's what it says. 120 people in Iceland have disappeared without a trace since 1945. This matter was brought to light in a yearly report from the National Commissioner of Police. Most striking of all is that there's only one woman amongst the 120. Pulling together the data was no small effort. While Icelandic law requires local police stations to report disappearances to the National Commissioner within 3 months of the first record of someone going missing, many of these records are still in paper form, necessitating having to pore over voluminous archives. Further, a lot of the older records fall short. In addition, police are not the only ones who complete missing persons reports. Rescue squads also maintain records. Circumstances of how these people went missing varies, but the records do contain a large number of seamen who went missing at sea. What percentage of the total of the missing people were seamen was not disclosed. Which is why you cannot put a lot of credence in missing persons numbers. I was watching a show, I don't know, it might have been Missing in Alaska, it might have been one of those Alaska shows that tries to put a lot of mystery into a non-missing mystery topic. But what they said was there's thousands of missing people in Alaska. That's a lie. It's just a lie. I went through a site, and it was a combination of Alaska State Troopers and I forgot the other site, but reputable sites about missing people. And there have been 1,600 missing people since 1960 in Alaska, which is not a large number. When you consider that, it's about 22, 23 people per year that go missing. And when you think about the vastness of Alaska, the number of people that live remotely, off the grid, in very rugged conditions, no, there's not a big mystery there. These shows try to make it mysterious, but the entire topic is not in my mind. Now, there are mysterious cases in Alaska, trust me, there are. And I'm going to talk about one today, but the whole topic of missing in Alaska, I'm sorry, I don't see it. Personal feelings. And the Icelandic cases, I know there are some mysterious cases there because there's not a lot of ground cover in Iceland. So, don't know what's going on there. But I want to keep you informed. Now, got a few interesting letters for you. Hey Dave, I've been following you for many years and I'm fascinated by your content. The Missing 411, the Village Letters, the Factual News, every class on Bigfoot, and I'm excited for the new set of UFO classes. Thank you. I'd like to share my journey of events regarding some UFOs. In the late 70s, as a little boy, 5 to 10 years old, my family lived on Oahu Island, Oahu, Hawaii, high on the eastern ridge that ran through the island overlooking the Pacific Ocean. Looking back, there were two odd things that I was experiencing that may or may not have a connection to what I've experienced down the road. I guess I'll start with the strange creature, I have goosebumps, that I periodically see peering through my bedroom window at night. Barely over the windowsill. It has large eyes and didn't frighten me. I was supposed to be scared, right? But I just looked back in wonderment. The second thing that began happening were recurring nightmares, which I had for many, many years and dozens of times. In these dreams, a massive triangular plane would hover over our house. Two entities resembling incredible hulks, yes, Lou Ferrigno, would take me onto their craft and take me to a cocoa head, an inactive volcano that bulged into the Pacific Ocean from our front deck. I'd then be thrown into some sort of wave pool and surrounded by multiple individual hulks. Somehow, I'd escape and run home to hide, only to have them come kidnap me again. Could that have been a boy's overactive imagination? Absolutely. But hovering triangular planes weren't exactly mainstream media in the 70s. Well, that's a weird one. And unless you heard it someplace, where did you ever get that thought? In 1983, we moved to San Ramon, California, a very upper-end community in Northern California. The dreams continued for several more years, but no more strange eyes peering in through my window. However, I found myself fascinated with the night sky. I spent every clear night stargazing and counting each plane, meteorite, and satellite. I pondered at length at what could be out there. I wanted so badly to see UFOs. Let's fast forward to 95-96, the inaugural year of Cal State University, Monterey Bay. One night in the spring of 96, my girlfriend and three fellow students had decided to drive up to Santa Cruz for a concert. Guess who was living in Santa Cruz in 96? Me. Our friends began squeezing into the back seat of my Honda Accord as I opened the passenger door for my girlfriend. The three-car doors shut as I walked around the vehicle, and just as I reached the driver's door handle, something instinctively told me to look over my right shoulder. I was shocked to see two white lights, some 150 feet apart, moving slowly from east to west about 1,000 feet away and no more than 800 feet in elevation. I turned to get the others' attention to take a look, but they were already piling out of the car as soon as one of them had seen the look on my face and then saw what I was focused on. We began walking into the cul-de-sac while excitedly chattering just as our neighbors pulled up. "What are you guys doing?" they asked. We pointed up. "What is that?" Moments later, more neighbors came out. There were now 10 of us looking skyward in the middle of the street at something that made absolutely no noise and was moving at a pace of a blimp. I chirped to my girlfriend, "Get your camera." She hurriedly retrieved it from her purse. At that very instant, the camera flashed, a third light strobe making a triangular shape with the two lights above. The strobing continued as she kept pushing the button on the camera. Suddenly, a campus security vehicle arrived. Actually, that was not campus security. That was University of California police. Suddenly, a campus security vehicle arrived and the gentleman asked what we were doing. We told him to have a look. He stepped out of his truck, took a good hard look and said, "I'm a pilot and I've never seen anything like that." We watched these lights and this thing move off in the east for at least 15 minutes. Oh, and those camera shots, none of them came out. The photos taken on that roll before and after, even the ones from the concert that night, they came out just fine. I don't claim to know what that could have been, but to have 11 people in disbelief kind of makes you go home. I wholeheartedly appreciate everything that you have done, my friend. Your humbleness and kindness is commended. You're an amazing mentor to us, and you should be very proud of the village you've created. Well, I appreciate that. And it's been an effort of everybody involved here, all of you out there. Greatly appreciate. I should remind you, one thing, I talked about this earlier in the week, but I'm going to remind you now. This weekend, I know it's Sunday, but this weekend I was doing something special for the community. And I do try to do this a couple times a year. But this weekend it'll play out. Missing 411, the UFO Connection, the poster. Well, I'm going to stay in all weekend. It's just going to be me and Huck and the posters. And I'm going to sign them until we run out. But everybody who buys a poster this weekend, I'm going to sign to you, and I'm going to put a little statement on the poster. But don't ask me to put what you want me to put. I'll put something in there that's wise and interesting. And I'm only going to sign it to the people who bought it. The reason being is that there's a lot of scoundrels out there that'll sell the poster to somebody and say, hey, I'll get it personalized for you. And unfortunately, it hurts everybody. But everyone who buys a Missing 411 poster, the UFO Hunter, or the UFO Connection, this weekend, it'll be signed for you. And I'm very blessed that many of you who have bought the poster have got it framed and sent me a picture. Wow, you guys have done some great jobs on those. So thank you. And it's my way of giving back to you to say I appreciate it. And a little bit of note. Remember when we tried selling the posters before, we had a little bit of a problem. I have posters that Ben and I signed for the first movie. And I tried to be a good guy and sell those at the same price, $20. And some scoundrels decided that they would take advantage of us and put it up on eBay for $3,000. Sick. So we talked about this, and we said, maybe $20 was too cheap, because they could roll the dice on that. Somebody who's trying to sell them. They could roll the dice, and if they sell it, they don't, whatever. So we're going to have to come up with a number. $50 or $100. And that'll be too much for resellers to buy and put online for sale, because they don't want to lose that amount of money if they can't sell it. I'm not sure what that price is going to be, but in the future we'll put it up. If you have some thoughts about that, I'm sure most of you will say, oh, put it up for $50. But it's going to have to be up there just to push the resellers away. And I don't like doing it, but there's a lot of bad people in this world. And I don't want other people to be taken advantage of by resellers. So, get a poster, get it signed, put it on the wall. And if you haven't seen it, you can watch it. And if you buy a DVD this weekend and you ask me, I'll sign that too. Okay, next letter. Hey Dave, thank you so much for what you do. The village so appreciates you. Thank you for everything. You're truly too humble to know how great of a guy you are. But we see you. Thank you. I've had lots of weird things happen to me in my life. I wish I could tell it all to you, but neither of us have time for that. This one, however, may be relevant to your work. I grew up on a dead-end road on my grandpa's farm on the banks of the Chippewa River in central Wisconsin. I'm now 60 years old. One spring when I was 10 years old, my aunt and cousins from Minnesota were down for the weekend. I was the eldest of the group. It's 6 kids. We're out running around in the yard playing flashlight tag. We had played this so many times before. Just about any time they would visit when it was seasonal. They lived in the city and they didn't get to play outside at night like us country kids. It wasn't long after dark, probably between 9:30 and 10, whoever it was had the flashlight, and the rest of us would hide until it found us. Then we would run around as a group and find the rest of who were hiding. So this is a game that I played kind of similar to this, called Kick the Can. And we get tons of kids from our street, put the can right in the middle of the street, and somebody would jump over the can 10 times, 15 times, I forgot how many times, and everyone would go and hide. And then that person had to go out and find people. And if somebody, when they're out looking for people, if somebody came and kicked the can before they jumped over the can on the person, they had to do it all over again. so you really couldn't wander very far from the can. Just a game that's probably been lost with time, but man, it was a lot of fun. The adults let us play outside at night because we were a group. The rules were stay in the yard. I wasn't the one with the flashlight, so I ran off to hide in my grandpa's garage. I'd intended to just duck around the corner and then jump out as my cousins got close. The smaller kids had stayed close to the house so they wouldn't be found first. As I ran up towards the garage, rather than going to the left and ducking around the corner as I had intended, I stopped in my tracks by what I believed to be a meteorite about to strike me dead. There was an extremely bright light moving at incredible speed directly towards me. It seemed like a meteorite that got bigger as it got closer, about the size of a basketball. I knew I was dead, so I just grasped and shut my eyes. A second later, I exhaled that breath, opened my eyes. Woo! Not dead. So I ran back around the corner of the house yelling, "Did you see that light? Did you see that light?" I got around the corner and almost all the adults were outside. Everyone has flashlights. Everyone is seemingly mad at me. Everyone thought I'd been hiding, not coming out when they called. The kids had looked for me for several minutes before they went and got the adults to alert them that something was wrong. The adults had already been outside looking for me for a half an hour. The adults shooed the kids away, and I told them what happened. My whole portion of the event was about a minute. I saw the light. In my reality, it had only been a minute since I left the other kids before I turned and ran back. My mom believed me. She knew I was telling the truth. I didn't think my dad did. But Mom explained he did believe me, but he was so uncomfortable about it because he had looked in that area twice and I wasn't there. The yard light reached me where I had been standing in the front of the white garage. He hadn't seen me. What had surprised me most about the light was that it came from a more eastern angle. When you're a kid, you kind of think things fall from the sky from straight above you. I experienced nothing, gasping, thinking I was dead and being struck by a meteorite or something, and the happiness of exhaling and opening my eyes to still being alive and then running back to ask the other kids if they had seen it. I was standing just as I had been, and it had been only a second or two, from seeing it coming and closing my eyes for impact. No missing clothing. I didn't feel anything. I wasn't altered in any way. Still had my shoes on. This probably isn't the weirdest thing that's ever happened to me, but I believe it's a significant, unexplainable event I have ever had. I've talked about this amongst friends over the years because I'm curious if other people have experienced it, but I haven't come across anyone yet. However, I have a suspicion that some of the villagers may know something about this type of experience. Dave, thanks for all you do. I've heard something similar to that when people were laying in bed in the middle of the night and they wake up and see a bright light and they have missing time. When that's what this is, missing time. And in the bedroom ordeal, people can't move. And even they yell and they still can't move. And their partner who's asleep next to them never hears anything, never feels anything. Very strange. So if anybody's heard of anything like that, let us know. Next letter. Hey Dave, really nice to meet you online with all your books and documentaries. I jump on every notification from CanAm Missing Project, YouTube. Truly awesome research and stories and delivered very nicely. Okay, I'm writing to you now. It may be nothing or it could be something, so here goes. I've been listening to all your guest appearances on Coast to Coast, talking about the missing and oddities surrounding cases. I keep an open mind with most things, so this is what I notice and seems to go together. You may already see a connection with the 4 instances I'm going to remind you of. 3 are your stories. 1 is someone phoning in to tell you a story. Well, I've told them that I know them. In one of your film documentaries, in the story of The Predator, a woman sees something going from tree to tree in a cloaked state. Remember, up a tree? While Satner hide in a forest on her land. Yes, it was in Missing 411. 2. 2, on Coast to Coast, someone phones in and says he was driving along and decided to pull over and take a hike. He meets up with a family and starts walking with them, and all of a sudden, another family comes from nowhere, and they start chatting, and they find out that they have some names. Edge of parallel worlds? But moving on the odd part, the guy says turns around and sees a boy lay on the floor with some sort of half-human creature with a tight-like suit on leaning over him. The creature turns his head, and this thing, he says, jumps 20 feet into the air. I can't remember if he said into a tree. Guy got spooked, I believe, by all the weird stuff going on, so he left. He also had been trying to phone into you for 4 or 5 days to talk with you. You mentioned a very odd case that you were lucky to find, as was buried deep in the records, about a guy who goes missing, but the odd thing is another guy with the exact same name goes missing as well. I think you were close to each other and not far apart in time as well. You mentioned someone who was found, I think an old guy up a tree naked with an orange vest and something on the floor by water, also found dead. Did something pick him up like the predator? Okay, cut a long story short. Quote, points to take note of, end of quote, that may come true in the future if you go down the rabbit hole with your case. Up a tree, Bigfoot cloaking, guy in a tree, times 2 instances. Same name, close together in certain time and place, times 2 instances. Is there more? Parallel dimensions coming together, maybe? Could be where people cross over and are never seen again. Or a second thought is the oddness we can't understand with all these cases living in a void between 2 dimensions. And when the parallel worlds touch, it opens up a door from, say, a void between both. Maybe letting something or someone in and back out of the body. Bit of food for thought. And also looking forward to all of your UFO videos up and coming. All the best. There's been a couple times where people have disappeared and somebody else with the same name disappears in very close time and space. It's happened a couple times. And when you start doing archival searches, I've run across those and they're kind of freaky. Not sure what the significance may be though. Next letter. Hey Dave, my name is I live in Dade City, right next to the Green Swamp in Central Florida. My good friend owns property in a place called Tiger Island near Cedar Key, Florida. He observed an adult Bigfoot crossing a trail 20 years ago. Since then, we have had all kinds of activity, including strange screams from the woods. Sometimes we put apples on straight poles and put them in the ground, about 6 or 8 feet tall, with an apple on top, and then disappeared the next day with no disturbance to the pole or the ground. How can that be? There are saplings, sometimes pretty thick ones, bent over on logs put on that are hold an arch to them. These things are everywhere. We found a structure that was built to hide in near our feeder. Hogs are everywhere here, and I believe the big guy prefers hogs to anything else. It's just a few of the things, but I couldn't list them all here, but it's countless. I had shoulder injury about a year and a half ago, and I had shoulder surgery about 3 months ago. Now here's my story of the last 3 weeks. I hadn't been in the woods in 9 months. The first night I was there, I snuck out on the front porch, and there's a pond in front of our cabin. I hit the floodlight on the pond, and something big started hauling butt up the side away from the pond. I kept the spotlight on him. He went into the wood line and immediately stood straight up like a person. When it was scurrying up the embankment, I thought it was a hog because it was like a dark gray color and it was on all fours, but when he got to the wood line, he stood up like a person. I knew what it was. He was a juvenile. Looked to be about 5 or 6 feet tall. I told my friend and we took off down there to look for tracks. Soon after we got there, there was a loud tiger-like growl. It came from the woods to our left, maybe 20 yards away. And it came from high up, maybe 10 feet. It sounded like, but was an angry growl. We think it was a mama or a dad looking after the younger one. We took off back to the cabin, and the rest of the night until we went to bed, we heard strange stuff. And I do mean really strange for at least 3 to 4 hours. Well, why didn't you record it on your phone? Well, the next night, I made the orb video very clear and very close sometimes. I even started talking to it. It was orange looking. Looked like plasma inside. I think it was 2 days later I captured a large, round, brilliant object above the trees near me. And it was not the moon, because I know for positive fact it was a 1/8 moon that night. I made one video where I captured what I think is infrasound. It starts out as a low roar and then steadily gets hotter and louder. Now, I did not hear this on the stand at all, but it is on the video. And then 2 consecutive nights, I filmed a similar UFO to the one you filmed. Good. The bad part is I'm not too tech savvy at all. I know you mentioned on your show if anyone had video of orbs or UFOs to send them in. Now, if I can figure out how to do that, I'll be sending you those videos. I think I'll be attending the conference, and in the encounter section of the show, hopefully somebody will help me take out 15 or 20 seconds of these. But until then, I'll be trying to figure out how to get them to you. I enjoy your shows and I follow you religiously. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Now, like I've told you before, 3rd week in April, I'm in Ocala, Florida. Hopefully I'll see you there, about 2 hours away from Orlando. You can fly into Orlando, have an easy drive, have a great conference. It's a 1-day conference on a Saturday. I think there's a meet and greet Friday night. Ron Moorhead will be there. I can't wait. Ron's a great friend, good speaker. And hope to see you guys there. Hope to see a big crowd there. Next one. Hey Dave, I thought I'd send you a message about how much I love your videos. On the real news, missing people and the Bigfoot 101 classes have been mind-blowing to say the least. The latest Missing 411 UFO Connection is by far the best informative documentary I've ever seen, and I've watched at least 3 times since I ordered it on DVD. Yes, you can order our videos on DVD only from our website, and that is NA, like North America, BigfootSearch.com. You can get the videos in DVD and Blu Ray. The interview with John D'Souza is simply incredible. You also interviewed him about 911, which I find very intriguing. I've read 7 of your books and currently reading Missing 411 Law. There's an extended version of the DVD and the Blu Ray, and the extended version is a very long segment with John that I interviewed at his house. If you're on this website right now and you click on the CanAm logo on the bottom left, it'll take you to another screen. And then that other screen will say, have 5 different things on the bottom. If you click on videos, it'll take you to all of our videos. And there's another long interview I did with John. One of the most watched segments I've ever done. I want to tell you about a possible brief Bigfoot encounter I had when I was around 10 years old. It was at night during the winter with snow on the ground. I used to go sledding during this time in an open field next to the house where I grew up. Sometimes I would hike in a small wooded area, especially if the moon was out shining on the snow during the winter. I walked to a tree line overlooking a ravine and looked into the woods. With the moon out, it was like for an instant I thought I saw a figure crouched overlooking straight up the hill at me, swinging its arms in a sideways motion, but very fast like a movie that is sped up. This only lasted about a second or two. When I blinked my eyes, whatever it was, it vanished. Dave, I'm not sure if this was something supernatural or just my imagination. For some reason, I felt too scared to go down into the ravine after this, and I just walked back home. I always had a dog or two who stayed with me during my excursions, but for some reason they were nowhere around when I had this encounter. Till recently, after seeing your Bigfoot 101 videos, I thought this was just my imagination, but now I'm not so sure. I definitely had fear of going down into the ravine and walking around the woods on that moonlit, snowy winter night. This occurred in Kingsport, Tennessee, and I grew up just down the road from Fall Branch community where you reported in Missing 411 North America and beyond of a child named Faye Crawford going missing from inside her parents' car on March 26, 1962. The police found the door handles had been broken off from the inside. Wow. I must say that after reading 8 of your books, watching your documentaries, videos, etc., you certainly have made a believer out of me. Anyway, Dave, I wanted to keep this short and thank you for all the hard work. You're an inspiration and a great role model that we desperately need in today's world. And God bless you and Angie. You're both of my prayers, and please give Huck a pat for me. You're a great guy. Thank you. No, thank you. So, sitting right here next to me is our executive producer, absolutely zonked, which now as I walk, I'm going to wake her up. But there she is, out like the count. She knows I'm looking at her. That's okay. She's here paying attention, making sure I'm doing a good job. And she'll tell me later if I'm not, so that's her typical MO. But, yes. So, I talked to you about Alaska a little bit earlier. And I meant this, that I've done a lot of cases out of Alaska. I've spent a lot of time in Alaska. And in fact, I am going to be in Alaska this summer on the Bigfoot Alaska cruise. If you Google that, you'll see it. And I will be speaking, and I'll actually be taking 2 different groups out when we do shore excursions. You could sign up and go on a shore excursion with me and Angie, and guess what we're going to do? We're going to go fishing. Yeah. So, I'm excited. And be a little getaway that we need. Huck is going to be staying with her cousins. And I wish we could take her, but I don't think you can take dogs on cruise ships. So anyhow, the first case is from Alaska, son of a gun. And it's a man named Charles Gay, G-A-Y. It's Charles. Now Charles went missing September 26, 2000. He was 28 years old. He resided in Montrose, British Columbia, just north of the Washington-Idaho border in British Columbia. He was a university graduate, he was a geologist, and he worked for a company called Archer Cathro in Whitehorse, the Yukon Territory. He'd worked for them for the 3 previous summers as a geologist on remote sites in the Yukon. Let me explain this. Since I've spent a lot of time in the Yukon, there's a lot of similarities between Alaska and the Yukon Territory. The weather is erratic. It could be 80 degrees 1 minute and be 30 degrees 20 minutes later, and rain, and then snow. One time, this is a great story. One time I took the kids up to a fishing lodge in the Yukon for a week. And what happened was I was working for a company in British Columbia, and I was their business development officer. And one of the board of directors owned a lodge in the Yukon. And it's called Inconnu, I-N-C-O-N-N-U. Inconnu, hey, shh, don't wake me up. Shh. Inconnu Lodge. And I got invited up, and they said, hey, bring the kids. So we brought the kids. And it's a nice lodge, and the fishing is phenomenal. And they fly you out to different lakes to fish during the day. And they have boats set up at these lakes, and some of the areas, hey, stop it. I'm talking to my audience here. Come on, be nice. Yeah. So, every day you fly out. And one of these days we flew out. What are you doing? And we spent the whole day fishing. Great day. And as a treat, the owner of the lodge, my buddy, instead of having the plane come out to pick you up on the lake, which isn't that expensive. Hey, you're annoying me now. Shh. So what happens is we have deer and all kinds of animals that come around the house. That always come around the house. And Huck hears them. And she wants to go out there and chase them. And she gets upset when we don't let her out to go. And we don't let her out. So she's mad right now because she feels like they're impugning on her property here. Okay. So my buddy picks us up in a helicopter. Now a helicopter is super expensive to fly. But he knew what he was doing. And he liked my kids. So he lands a helicopter and he goes, hey guys, give you a little treat and fly you back by helicopter. I go, wow, that's cool. So he gets in the helicopter and he looks at the kids and he goes, hey, what haven't you guys seen on this trip? So one of the kids says, I haven't seen a mama moose and a baby moose. My buddy's name is Warren. And Warren goes, oh, okay. And looks at the other. What haven't you seen? I haven't seen a grizzly bear. Okay. So Warren looks at me and he goes, that's going to be a hard pill to fill, Dave, but I'll try. So it's like a 30-minute ride in the helicopter back to the lodge. So Warren takes off, and I'm telling you, everything in the Yukon, when you're in the air, is a 10 as far as beauty. It's unbelievable. So instead of going back to the lodge, and I know the route that he's going to fly, he goes a different direction. And I kind of think he must know where he's going. So we take off and we fly and we go to this next lake that has a big slough, and we go over this little ridge and he goes down into this valley, and boom, right away, what's standing right there in the slough? A mama moose and a baby moose. Unbelievable. It's like a picture perfect sunset view. And he doesn't bother it. He stays away, and at a very long perimeter, he flies around so the kids can have a good view. So Dad can have a good view. And then he goes, okay, now for the grizzly bear. So he kind of makes a sweep around this big mountain. And he goes, Dave, pay attention down here, because I know there's one that lives around here somewhere. So he goes down into this valley, and this giant grizzly bear comes running up the side of the mountain right next to where we're hovering near. And Warren's, as the bear's running up the side of the mountain, Warren's staying a good distance away, but just going up with it. And it would stop every once in a while and turn and look at us. We went up, followed it up the mountain. The speed that grizzly bear was running up like a 45, 50-degree mountain was mind-boggling. So we watched that for a couple minutes. Warren does a loop. 15 minutes later, we land at the lodge. Kids are just absolutely stunned. It's like watching a National Geographic special. And the kids get out, and what you do is, after you come back from fishing, You go into your cabin, take a shower, and then you come and have dinner. Well, the kids go in the cabin, and I came over to Warren. I gave him a big hug. And I told him, Warren, that was a once-in-a-lifetime ordeal. I couldn't have afforded to have you do what you just did. And I'm very grateful for what you did. That'll be something they never forget. I remember going back into the cabin. I remember Ben saying, wow, Dad, that was so cool. It's one of those moments that I just never forget. Getting back to this case. Charles Gay, missing September 26, 2000. The reason I told you the story about the Yukon is because it is very, very wild. Just as wild as Alaska. Just as dangerous as Alaska. And Charles was a geologist in some of the most remote locations of the Yukon. And because of that, he was able to thrive as a geologist. He decided he wanted to spend some time in Alaska. And he went out and went to Skagway. If you've ever been to Skagway, you need to go. It's a beautiful little city on the water. And he stayed in a hostel. And right behind the hostel, just a couple streets over, was a trail that went to a place called Upper Dewey Lakes. I'll give you the map here. Now this is Skagway. The hostel he was staying in was right here. The trail was right there. And it's about 2.8 miles, almost all uphill, very steeply uphill, to Dewey Lake. You can look at it online. It's a very pretty little hike. Well, Charles, you know, he'd been around. He knew the area. He knew the dangers. He knew how to manage himself. So if there was anybody that was going to go out and be fine, it would have been him. Now, he was scheduled to take the ferry that night to leave at 11 p.m. back to British Columbia. So he knew the timeline. Now, it stays light in Alaska till 10 or 11, so it wouldn't have been unusual in September for it to be light really late. Well, he didn't show up that night. And the manager thought, well, maybe he's just going to blow off the ferry he was going to take. So he didn't make much of it until the next morning when Charles and all of his stuff was still in his room. So the manager called Alaska State Troopers and Skagway Police. Well, right away, they started search and rescue. They knew something was wrong. So they contacted Alaska State Troopers. They sent a helicopter up into the upper areas of the lake. They sent a series of ground pounders. And they weren't finding anything. Now, Charles's mom, her name was Mary. And Mary lived in Montrose, BC. And Charles lived with her the majority of the time when he wasn't in the field. Well, Charles's mom tried to raise funds to keep the search alive. And Skagway actually rallied behind this disappearance, and a lot of people helped with the search. several months after the formal search ended, informal searches continued. Now, Charles had a brother named Kevin, and Kevin actually went to Skagway several times, trying to develop clues as to what may have happened to his brother. At one point, the family contacted psychic Sylvia Brown to assist. She didn't offer anything that led to anything. Now, this area of Dewey Lakes is very remote very quickly. It's a popular trail, though. But if you went to the back side of the lake, to the very top peak behind the lake, that's a long hike. Well, apparently, that's what Charles did, unbeknownst to anybody. Because in the summer of 2001, there was a secondary search for Charles. And in that secondary search, they expanded the area they went to. It wasn't just around the lake area. They sent a crew up to this cabin on the backside at the highest peak. And it was a very remote cabin that really didn't appear to be used very much. One of the searchers found a logbook back on a shelf out in a corner. And they took it out, and in this logbook, they found the statement. Great day, great hike, but this G.D. pen ran out of ink, and Brian G. signed it. Well, son of a gun. Brian Gay was there. That's something. And that was the first hint that they ever had that Brian was in that area. Well, now they had a clue. But they also knew that this would have been the highest point that Brian would have went, or Charles would have went to, Charles Gay. That meant that really he was somewhere between that cabin and Skagway. That would have been the only thing that made sense. Because to get to that point on the mountain would have been a Herculean effort. He wouldn't have gone much further. Well, there has been many searches over the years. He has not been found. Nothing of his has been found. Brian's mom worked with law enforcement and submitted her DNA to NABS's database, NAMUS. 23 years now, no clothing, no backpack. How can that all disappear? Shoes never disappear. Shoes stay forever. They brought in canines. There was no scent trail. He was hiking to a lake. He was around a lake, so he was around water. He was alone. He was an intellect. He was smart. He was no rookie to this topography, to this type of landscape. Now, a lot of people will say, oh, you know what, you got to really be careful for grizzlies, blah, blah, blah. You got to really be careful for moose. Moose cause more injuries than grizzlies. And erratic weather. If rain moves into the Yukon or to Alaska, it can kill you quickly through hypothermia. There was no rain that day that he was hiking. He was in excellent physical condition. He was highly educated. He had a lot of common sense. This is a huge mystery. Charles should have been found. Why he wasn't found? I've got no clue. All within 3 miles of a city. I've told you this many times before. Some of the most complex and confusing cases happen really close to the city. With all of the experience that Charles had, it didn't save his life. So, I feel very sorry for his family. They did a great job promoting more searches, fundraising to get more people on the mountain. It's really tough when a parent outlives their child. I'll tell you that. That's a fact. So, I get it. The next case. A man named Carl Sanders. This is Carl. Carl was 48 years old and disappeared May 7th, 2002, just north of Tonopah, Nevada. You guys know what Tonopah is famous for? Tonopah has a test range called Area 52. You know of Area 51. Area 52, it's a DoD facility. Highly classified. Technically, it's about 70 miles north of Groom Lake, in the middle of nowhere desert, Nevada. Now, Carl was part Native American. He was an Idaho native. He had a wife named Debbie. They'd been married for 20 years, and they had a 7-year-old daughter. The family lived in Fairfield, California, where Carl owned a very successful Caterpillar repair business. Well, Carl and his wife decided to take a vacation. They rented a Jeep and headed for the Nevada desert. Now, where exactly were they at? So this is Tonopah right here. This is the California line. This is Big Smoky, Coaldale. This is the Big Smoky Valley landing strip and the search zone of where this happened. Here's the city of Austin, Nevada right here. This is a valley, and in this valley, there's a mountains, big mountains on each side. He was just east of Highway 376 in the mountains with his wife. Now, they rented this Jeep. They go into this area, and there were supposedly some hot springs around there. And technically, I think they might have been looking for that. Well, this happened July 7th, 2002. In July, you better not be playing games in the Nevada desert. It's going to kill you because it's about 125 degrees. Well, what happens? The worst thing imaginable happens. They run out of gas. And they're way up one of these valleys, way off the road. So what they do is they get out of the Jeep and they start hiking. After a couple days, they decide to split up. Major mistake. You don't split up. My audience is going to get mad at you. My audience is going to get mad. You're making too much noise here. Okay? Well, after they split up, several days later, a U.S. Forest Service worker is out. And they find Carl's wife, Debbie, delirious, nearly unconscious, barely alive. He calls for life flight. They land, paramedics treat her, and then they life flight her out to Washoe Medical Center. Carl wasn't with her. She explains the best she can at the time that her and her husband split up and that he's out there somewhere. Well, they bring in the troops, 4 different search and rescue groups. Naval Air Station in Fallon, Nevada responds. Bureau of Land Management sets up a search and rescue headquarters. Civil Air Patrol responds. Horseback riders respond. Canines respond. National Guard responds. It's huge, the response. Several days into the search, one of the SAR members comes across a pair of shorts, a shirt, and 1 sandal. They send the photo to Washoe Medical Center, and Carl's wife identifies it as his. They backtrack and they find tracks in the dirt that go towards a big rocky area. They pour all their resources into it. They found nothing. Well, in 2003, after Debbie came out of the hospital, she survived. She was in the hospital for 2 days. She got great assistance at Washoe Medical Center. They're a really good hospital. And Debbie came out and assisted in the search. They found nothing. Now let's think about this for a second. Point of separation. I have talked about this 100, if not more times. When you're in the wild, you stay together. Unless one of you are debilitated, totally broken legs, something. The weather's 125 degrees. Heat's excruciating. People said, well, maybe he just stripped his clothing because he was so hot. I agree, maybe he did. But do you know how many times I have cited people I've written about that have taken their clothing off way before any point of too much heat, too cold could ever have hit them? Some of the clothing had come off maybe 100 yards away from where they were last seen, so it makes no sense. Missing clothing, missing shoes is a prominent issue in a lot of the cases I write about, if you're new to this. Now, the agency that was in charge of the search was Lander County Sheriffs in Nevada. And a sheriff sergeant named Eric Paulides. Eric talked to the press, and he said that Carl's disappearance is a huge mystery. If a sheriff sergeant says that, I'm paying attention. Now, maybe there's boulders there that you could hide around, but in the desert, there's not a lot of big trees out there to hide under. Now, the sheriff's office, when he did disappear in 2002, they called every hospital in Nevada and California, thinking maybe he got a ride out of there with somebody. Yeah, they didn't have anybody matching that. They also had professional trackers on scene at the time of the original search, thinking that maybe the professional trackers would help them find Carl. They didn't. Now, the last couple times I've done missing persons cases, I've talked to you about desert cases. I think they're peculiarly strange. Because a body in the desert, you should be able to pick up the odor of a body on a cadaver dog 5 miles away. Easy. Easy. So when they came back the next year, cadaver dog should have picked up that scent. But they didn't. And why not? Where could he have gone? Doesn't make any sense to me. But it falls in line with all of the rest of the 411 cases. I feel very bad for Carl's daughter and for Debbie. Losing a husband that you spent 20 years with and you had a good life, that's devastating. So, north of Tonopah, Nevada, Carl Sanders, 48 years old, July 7, 2002. And Charles Gay, September 26, 2000, Skagway, Alaska. I'm honored that you're here. I appreciate anybody who listens and watches. Please share this on your social media. Give me a thumbs up if you like the video. And can you make sure you're subscribed? It would help us a lot. You can follow me on Twitter. And Twitter's not the same way it used to be. It's a lot more mundane. David Paulides at CanAm Missing. You can buy our DVDs and our books on our online store. Don't buy the books from anybody online. You're going to get ripped off paying 3 and 4 times the value of the book. On our website, the books are $25, and that's NA, like North America, NABigfootsearch.com. Go to the online store and you'll see the list. Thanks again. Be safe. The last favor I ask is that you go into the community, you see somebody in distress, see somebody that needs help, be that good person. Extend yourself. Do something nice. Thank you. Paulides out.